Welcome, readers. Today on Book Chat, we are discussing the first book in our new fantasy read-along, A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored in part by audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code SHELFADDICTION, spelled as one word, when you sign up at audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is SHELFADDICTION. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this book discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. Talk about the series with us there, as well as other bookish topics. I hope to hear your thoughts on this book discussion. As always, you can find the 3 of us on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That will really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including this podcast after show. We get even more candid with what we have to say. So if you're interested in that at all, you'll need to come on over to Patreon and sign up. Before we get started, I have to issue a spoiler warning. This is a roundtable book discussion, so nothing is off limits. You've been warned. Welcome back to another 3-book blogger, 1 series read-along discussion. Today we are talking about the first book in our new read-along, All Souls Trilogy by Deborah Harkness. Joining me are my 3 bloggers, 1 series read-along co-hosts, Casey and Nicola. Welcome back, ladies.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Yes. So, Nicola, please, before we get started, how about you run down those book stats?
All right, well, dude. Did you say what we're reading, Tamara? We're going to be reading the All Souls Trilogy by Deborah Harkness. The first book was published February 8th, 2011. It's a long book, 594 pages, printed from Penguin Books. And if you choose to read the audiobook, that's about 23 hours and 59 minutes, very precise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the author is Jennifer Ikeda. I hope I said that right.
Sounds right.
The narrator. I think I said author.
All right, Casey, how about you hit us up with the synopsis?
All right. Deep in the stacks of Oxford's Bodleian Library, young scholar Diana Bishop unwittingly calls up a bewitched alchemy manuscript in the course of her research. Descended from an old and distinguished line of witches, Diana wants nothing to do with sorcery. So after a furtive glance and a few notes, she banishes the book back to the stacks. But her discovery sets a fantastical underworld stirring, and a horde of demons, witches, and vampires soon descend upon the library. Diana has stumbled upon a coveted treasure lost for centuries, and she is the only creature who can break its spell. And that's it.
And cut. Okay. All right. So this is adult fantasy with time travel and magic and werewolves and
Vampires and witches and demons. Oh,
and
nice.
Damians. Or Damians, I guess how it should be pronounced. Is that right? Damians? Based on the spelling?
I think demon is probably... It's spelled like Damon, D-A-E-M-O-N.
A-E.
But...
Yeah. But demons is what we always say. So.
Yeah.
And funnily, they seem like the most harmless of the 3 featured creatures.
Yeah, they definitely do. I also, well, just to kick things off, I learned a little tidbit about Deborah Harkness, and I learned that she too has a favorite season, and like me, that is fall. So there is no mistake. It was by design why this book started in the fall time, so all of the fall vibes were present throughout this book. I was feeling it. We even got Halloween in this book.
Yep. there was a lot that happened in a short amount of time, because it starts at the beginning. I think near the end they said this is, it's been 40 days, right? So it starts in September, and the last chapter ends on Halloween evening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like all, or not all, let me say a lot of paranormal romance. They fall in love very fast, and it is an all-consuming love. And that is very similar to a lot of other things we read in that genre. So that didn't surprise me at all. How about you guys? Were you guys, oh my God, they fell in love in like 3 days?
Yes.
It was okay. I mean, I've seen some that was better. I've seen some that annoyed me. This one didn't bug me that much, but I didn't see it on the page as much as I would have liked. Like, I didn't see. There was doubt in my mind about the chemistry, right? Was it an enthrallment? Was it something supernatural, or was this a real, like, human, like, falling in love connection, or was it something different?
I think it was like a fated love, because later in the story, the mother had seen Matthew in a vision. Mm-hmm. So she'd seen, her dark knight or dark prince
the
or
man
whatever.
In shadows.
Man in shadows, yes. Yeah. So I'm like, I feel like it was more fated love than regular old love. I think that's why they fell so hard.
But still, it was so weird. Like, he crawled in through her window and watched her sleep. Can we not?
That is very weird.
Can we stop that trope, please? Please, can we stop that trope? It's creepy.
But she treats it later as creepy, right? She doesn't think, that's romantic when she finds out about it. She's unhappy.
No, God.
Right?
But still.
So yeah, I mean, I felt like this story had more elements of horror than a lot of the urban fantasy that I'm used to reading. It definitely had like some really creepy shit with the vampires and the witches both. And so it felt like very supernatural to me. It didn't feel like a normal affair.
Yeah, same. Like, I mean, just the vibe of it all, even though, yes, okay, Casey, you win that. It is creepy to have someone in your bedroom in any circumstance that is creepy. But I think later they try to, and first, wait, before I say this, let me just say, this is my second time through this trilogy. You guys are new. It's my second time. And the first time I read A Discovery of Witches, it was for book club. And I railed on Matthew's character. I freaking hated so many things about him. So I was very hard on this book the first time. But reading it the second time, I think because I know what kind of character Matthew is in the long run, I'm not as pissed off about him the second time around. So I'll just say that. So if you find me kind of defending some of the things, it's because I feel like he grows as a character, unlike some of the other guys we've read about who are the same fucking way all the way through. Like, we will reference Twilight quite a few times. Edward is the same fucking character all the way through. There's no growth, in my opinion.
Am I going to have to read Twilight to understand this book?
Girl, don't. Save your life and don't do it.
I never have.
Don't do it.
I never have, so.
Yeah, save your time and don't. But but that's why, I mean, what was I saying to begin with?
Character growth.
Yes. Right. So later on, like, they express very clearly, again and again, it comes up again and again, he is a predator. He chases what he wants. He stalks, he hunts, he's a predator. And so he acts like that, even though Diana knows, you're not going to hurt me. You're not going to do anything. But he's still going to be, okay, if you bring a wolf in your house, it may snuggle up against you, but it's still a damn wolf. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's very fair. But I'm really confused as to why she fell in love with him in 2 days. And she's all like, oh, I'm safe around him. And, there was that one part in the very beginning where he basically stalks her all the time while she's rowing. And then he's like, let me give you a ride home. And she sits there and she thinks to herself, last week I never would have been this close to a vampire, but I feel safe around him. So I'm going to get into this car with him. And then he sniffs her. And she's like, are you sniffing me? And he's like, yeah, because you smell good, but it's okay. We're safe. And she's like, yeah, we're safe. And I'm like, what the fuck? You just said a week ago you'd stay away from him, and now you're just like getting in a car with him? Why?
It's fated. That's my exclamation. That's my reason. Like, all reasoning is out the window because it's meant to be, even though I hate that shit. But that is the reason. There's no other reason. You cannot explain it any other way.
You can't.
Nothing makes sense.
No, it doesn't. It does not make sense. It just...
Yeah, I mean, I just took it. Everything was very eerie about this book. And the love story wasn't really central to it in my mind. So I just kind of rolled with that a little bit. But I agree with Casey. Like, the connection is a little dubious, but I was interested in the stuff around the romance, I guess. And it's not even it wasn't very I don't know.
It's not romantic.
It's not like it's not a typical romance. But
no, I mean, the situation with hence they met under was not a situation where he could court her and date her. So all of those romantic cues that we get, the vibes that they have time to establish, in other romances, they don't get. So it's like, it is unusual, and you don't really feel that, well, at least I didn't really feel that connection with them until like the end of the book. Like, the end of the book, I started to feel like, well, maybe they are, legit. Like, at the end, I felt that, but not early on. I mean, early on.
I think the safety thing comes from him protecting her from the other witches. So Jillian and the dude, I forget his name. Peter Knox. Yeah. So they were very threatening to her. And at the point where she realizes that he and Miriam are protecting her, I think that's the beginning of the trust situation for her. Like, I didn't get that at the beginning. Like, there was all this talk about who was sitting where in the library, and when I finally figured out that, he's protecting her, I don't know if that was super obvious right at the beginning.
Yeah, not only that, and then when they went to the lodge for yoga and like creature yoga, like,
what the fuck was
she'd
that?
never seen,
and everybody was there.
Like, she'd never seen, witches and vampires and demons together in the same room doing an activity together without killing each other. So that was like never, that opened, I think, a new door for her, like a possibility that she never even considered before.
She
which
herself
made her
had
more
been avoiding all witches and all paranormal creatures because she doesn't want to do magic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Even though she kind of was doing magic. Kind of. Ish, maybe.
Oh, she was doing magic. But the thing about her magic...
She lifted a book off a shelf.
She was passively doing magic when she thought she could do it. Like, she counted how many times she did magic, didn't she? She was like...
annoying.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like she was like, okay, it's okay to use for little things.
Yeah.
Because no one will notice me getting a book off a shelf or, picking, whatever. They're little, but she doesn't want to commit to learning spells or learning history or learning a lot else because of her parents' situation. So I don't know. It's like, and the way they explained her magic was interesting, but I guess, like, how her parents, like, bound her. So, like, it was harder for her to use her magic. It became more passive and instinctive and intuitive versus, I'm going to learn this spell and there, magic.
Well, she had to need it. So it had to be a need, not just a want.
Right. So that's different. Which is why is Sarah trying to teach you all these spells, and it's by your magic is based on need right now. What's the point of learning the spells? I didn't get that part, but why? Why waste my time on these spells when everything?
But they didn't figure that out until she was trying to learn the spells.
Yeah. Well, I guess Matthew helped her figure that out when they were playing around in the orchard or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I think what annoyed me most was that this was a fantasy magical world and there was absolutely no magic in the first huge chunk of the book. Like, yes, she used the magic to lift the book off the shelf, and she talked about all these other times she used magic, like the 5 times or whatever. But there's no magic. There's nothing being done. There's no intrigue about magic or building of the world. We spent 100 pages building her routine instead. That's not very important at all. Like, we get to see her go running and rowing and drinking tea and going and sitting at the library for 10 hours a day. And I have never read a magical book that spends that much time on the mundane stuff. And I've never read a contemporary book that spends that much time on the mundane stuff. Like, it was so...
Oh, they spent 200 pages setting it up. Like,
yeah, it was a lot. So dragged out that it needed to be cut down a lot. And I think that's what bothered me the most, is that it just went on and 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 on.
Well, the author is a historian and an academic, and this is her first work of fiction, I believe. So I think that showed a little bit in that, it was very academically oriented at the beginning. I don't know, but you're right, Casey. I think by the pacing was a problem. And after you pinged me and you were saying how much you were struggling with it, I started noticing many, at least half, if not more, of the chapters in the first 2/3 of the book end with Diana going to sleep.
I didn't notice that.
She's going to sleep, and when you end a chapter by putting your characters to sleep, you put your readers to sleep. It makes it easy to put the book down. It makes it, you're like, okay, I'm going to put that down and then come back to it tomorrow. And like, some of them ended where she fell asleep, and then there's a couple of lines about what she dreamed about, right? There's the one where she dreamed she was on the horse and she told the horse to fly, and they did, but that's still falling asleep kind of moment. And I didn't count it towards the end because things were moving a little bit faster, but and I was really trying to get to the end to make the reading deadline. But I read that one time in a book about writing advice that you can't do that. You can if you're writing like a cozy, or you're writing which this kind of was, like, if there's a fantasy equivalent to a cozy mystery, this kind of was through a lot of it. But if you're trying to write a thriller, you don't end chapters like that. You end chapters with the...
I don't think it was either.
Yeah.
I don't think the author was shooting for a thriller. I don't think she was shooting for a cozy. I don't think it's either.
Which might be part of the problem.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I did like it better after the kidnapping. I think things moved a little better after that. I was annoyed with that page where she kisses him goodbye and says, "I'll be back before you even know I'm gone." I'm like, oh, she's going to be kidnapped.
Of course.
I knew that. I was like, oh God. And all that stuff about the tea and the
there was a lot of heavy-handed foreshadowing.
Yeah, like Marta and the tea and drink it every day. I'm like, oh,
and the minute that happened, I'm like, oh, that's birth control. Yeah. I'm like, the minute she said, you have to drink it every day, promise? I'm like, oh, birth control.
Right. But she's not supposed to be able to. She's not even having sex. Like, that was another thing that was strange about this. Like, they didn't do the deed at all in this first book. That's
Why
going to make
not?
getting pregnant really problem. I think that's why. I think he was worried about it.
Because of the Accords. He knew about it, although Diana clearly didn't know about
Right.
it, right? She didn't, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's another reason why Diana should have been more pissed at him, because that is the reason why he was holding off.
Well, once they were married, though, I don't see how it makes a difference
Right.
that they're sleeping together or not, or having sex or not. But he doesn't believe that. I mean, vampires can't procreate, right? That was taken
That's
as
what they believe.
as an immutable fact. But still, he seemed like he was still kind of worried about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe it had to do with all of the oddities found in her DNA. Like, there were open questions throughout after they started testing her DNA and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe because he didn't know everything, he didn't want to risk it. I don't know.
You don't have to do penetrative sex.
Well, they did some of that.
It was weird.
I don't know. I'm of the school where, while I do think some sexy time is helpful in certain types of books that like to be labeled as romance, I don't necessarily feel like it's a mandatory thing in all of them.
Oh, no.
So
I don't mind closed door, but this wasn't closed door sex. This was making a point of not having sex.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a little strange, especially when the pregnancy thing became a big deal near the end.
So that makes me wonder. So when you become 1,500 years old, maybe sex isn't as important to you anymore. I mean, you still like it, but it's not priority. You slept with hundreds of people at that point.
Yeah.
Come up, probably thousands of people at that point.
One a year.
How important is it? I mean, if you had one a year, shit, that's 1,500 women and men or men.
Okay, but one a year is a lot. Let's think about how our relative age is right here. No, that's too many.
Right, but once you become a vampire, normal people wouldn't do that. But when you become a vampire, he had an issue with mixing sex. He even had that conversation about mixing sex and hunting and things like that. So it sounded like he had an issue with it for a period of time. So he totally could have been having sex with a whole bunch of people after he turned versus before, when you might not be.
That's true.
As slutty. But when you can't catch anything and you can't get people pregnant, why the hell not? That's what I'm saying. So I don't know.
They didn't make a point of saying that they couldn't get diseases in this book. They do in a lot of paranormals, but they didn't in this one.
I thought they did when Diana got all those before they went back in time. Matthew came with all those vaccinations. He didn't have to take anything.
But he lived through them.
None of them were worried.
Maybe.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But they made sure to point out the fact that she needed all these, 18 or 19 vaccinations or something crazy.
Yeah.
It was
cholera, and typhoid,
smallpox, all kind of stuff. She was like, I don't want to be shot up with that stuff. And he's like, well, when you have this and you got lockjaw, then we'll talk. You'll be sad you didn't take these.
Yeah.
But that was real, I guess. If you're going back to 1590, you do need vaccinations that we don't need today.
Yeah, Diana Gabaldon made a big point of that too in Outlander when the character so the character goes back and forth between the 20th century and in the historical times several times, and when she deliberately goes back the second time instead of accidentally the first time, she does make it a point of trying to figure out how to bring antibiotics back, and there's a lot in the whole series about her trying to find a way to create antibiotics, penicillin with the bread.
I saw it on the show. I didn't read the book, but I saw it on the TV show.
Yeah. I watched the first season. I was a big fan of the books, but they're really violent. And we got to the end of the first season where I knew Jamie was going to be tortured, and I was just like, I don't want to watch this. And I stopped watching. So.
It is violent. Okay. Hopefully, we know, I know this adaptation is not violent like that.
Okay.
So you're good. You won't be like grossed out by anything. We're
okay.
Good. Anyway.
Back to what were we talking about?
Vaccinations.
Yeah.
That was where I don't know what led to that though. Anyway, I guess we can move on.
Well, I think the time walking, to Casey's point a little bit, like the magic stuff all got kind of dumped in at the end. And like the time walking really was at the very, very end. Like it was in the last 100 pages. I know because I tried to skim them because I was behind on finishing the book for this. And I was like, maybe I can just wait, what is going on? Oh. So I had to go and read all. So I was, I was a little, it was surprising to me, like that they would put something like time travel as oh yeah, your dad did that all the time, like as I don't know, it seemed like a big thing to just kind of seed in the last 10% of the book.
Yeah, well, also, what's her name? The demon that was pregnant, her father
Sophie.
Or her mother. Yeah, she did it as well. Because she would say, oh, he used to always go back, or her mother used to always go back, and she came back with great ideas for her pottery. So apparently, it's not so obscure to time walk or time travel after all. I mean, like we got two people in the same room that have relatives, parents that have done it. So
Sophie was a weird character too. She was so spacey, like la 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 la.
She's a little off. Yeah, she kind of was. And I'm sure having a witch baby inside of her that helped her see things didn't help. So
I was confused about who was what in that scene where she and Nicholas, was it? Nathaniel showed up?
Nathaniel. Mm-hmm. So both of them are demons, but she's pregnant with a witch baby, and they know that the baby is a witch because of the things that she's able to do.
Okay. I have trouble following that.
Why. Okay. Well, that's why I guess she ended up telling Nathaniel's mother what she saw, and the mother was like, oh shit. Okay, look, these people go here at this, and that's what kind of led them there. Right. So that's when I think the story opened up more when they came on the scene, because it's not about simply, Diana and Matthew anymore. It's not about them two trying to be together. It's way more than that. And I think that is going to be more interesting to open up the world like that going forward. It's not just them two against the world. It's like, we're doing this for something bigger than us, which makes more sense to me than just these two.
I feel like Sophie and Nathaniel should have been brought in much earlier to build that up, because it was too focused on Diana and Matthew. Because like you said, they were just thrown in at the very end, and all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, of course we time travel, and of course she's a demon pregnant with a witch, and of course, this is what you need to do, and okay, the book's over.
Well, this book was, what'd you say, 570 something pages?
Almost 600.
Yeah.
So when I looked at, because I was trying to figure out where Casey was in the book, she was under 200 pages. And it looked like it was around 210 or 207 or something like that was when they left London and went to France. To me, that's where things started, is when they went to France. So that 200 pages out of 600 is a good chunk. Okay, that's a good chunk of the book. And it felt like walk, run. So the last, part, the last 1/3 of the book had a lot of content in it that maybe could have been filtered through a little sooner or more sprinkled through instead of run at the end. But I don't know. But after they went to France, I had no pacing problems after that, because I liked Isabeau. I liked their weird friendship that was developed. I liked Mart. And then we got to meet more and more people. And I liked getting introduced to more and more. I like a big cast sometimes, and this book has it. By the end of it, There's like 9 of them in that house together.
Yeah. The house kept growing.
Yeah, which was weird too, but that was kind of cool. Like the house would just make a room.
That reminded me of Ilona Andrews' Innkeeper series. But I did like the house as a character. That was a cool thing. The way it protected objects and had all the ghosts. I think that the book is uneven, right? And I think that that it took her places she wasn't expecting to go is the way it felt like to me. Like the author didn't necessarily know where she was going with some of these threads and didn't know how to clean it up once she got things moving the way she wanted it. I did like Isabeau. I did like the story better after like once the kidnapping happened, then it seemed like things really started to happen. It still had a kind of a dreamy quality. And I like Casey said, I would have liked to seen the magical world building a little bit more throughout the book. Even if Diana, I mean, the reason it's not there is because Diana's been in denial this whole time. Yeah. But we could have, and has been, in fact, bound so that she couldn't use her magic. But I don't know. There are ways that it could have been done. There are ways that the reader could have understood better what kind of world we were living in. And there were scenes that I thought were amazing, like when she was riding the horses with Matthew. That was a wonderful scene. When she starts,
she was like talking to the horse, like in her mind. He called her out. He's like, "Are you talking to the horse?" Like,
yeah.
like,
and the stag. She talked to the stag too that he was hunting. When she started being able to sort of visualize the huntress goddess with her magic, that was really cool. So there were parts of it that I really did like, but I feel like for 600 pages, it was a little bit hard going and a little bit uneven. So.
Okay, so I think this is a good time to take a break for our sponsors. When we return, we will finish up our conversation, we'll give our ratings, and we will give you a little bit of info about what's next. So stay with us. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. What was the lady's name, the witch's name that kidnapped her? Was it, what was
Satu?
it? Satu, yeah. Satu, right? Satu? Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that kidnapping scene was good. I thought it was good. I liked that she got to see the ghost forms and her parents. And it was like at that point, like the stories that she was told as a child started to surface, like things like she had forgotten basically had started coming back, and she was able to help herself get out of that.
Yeah.
Through that. I thought that was really unique. And it wasn't just Matthew, come save Diana. It was, she saved herself essentially. And he was just there as an assist. Like, I'll finish the job. But I kind of like that. I like that was like the thing that did kind of kick off her opening up to these new, like, oh, wait a minute. My parents told me these stories this whole time. My mom was telling me this whole time.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Which I thought was nice. I liked it.
One other scene that I really liked, I think, was Matthew's brother when they came back to the United States, and she was, healing, and Matthew's brother that he somehow doesn't like for some reason, kind of talks to her about the Queen's Gambit, and I think that really, I would have easily fallen into that. Okay, she's kind of safe now. She's surrounded by people, but I really liked that he planted that seed of, no, this is just the opening move. And it really, I think, added to the tension, even though it was just a brief scene. It really influenced like the last third of the book.
Oh, for sure. And of
Mm-hmm.
which Matthew hated that he told her that. It's like, come on. Like, why wouldn't you already know, she is strong. Like, you're seeing her do these things. You know that what is in there, right?
Yep.
But why would you try to shelter her from the real deal? Like, when it comes down to it, she's going to have to she carries the load here, okay? She is doing the work. She is protecting. She is carrying you back and forth in time. Everything. Like, so why would you want to keep that from her? So that was one of my issues I had with him. I'm like, come on, Matthew, get your shit together.
He kept a lot from her.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. And it was really annoying. Like, every time he did it, it was, okay, come on, Matthew. We've been through this before. Just say the words. Like,
yeah.
Just say it. And he
like
wouldn't.
With her DNA, even when Marcus came and said, look what I found, you gotta, he's like, okay. And he's like, you're not going to tell her, are you? He's like, no. And he's like, what? He's got to know. And it's like, I'll tell her when the time is right. I'm like, well, who says when the time is right? It's like, that's what she needs to know that.
Yeah. Who gets to decide that?
Right.
Exactly.
A 15-year-old guy, 100-year-old guy who thinks he knows everything. That's
1,500.
1,500.
Because he usually does know everything. He's used to being
the smartest person in the room.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be hard to know all that stuff about history and not talk about it? Like to look at humans coming up with all these incorrect theories and just be like, oh, it didn't happen like that.
Yeah, probably.
I would have such a hard time keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not what happened with Newton. Okay. He was a demon, and that's how I figured this out.
Yeah. I mean, and he has like all this old stuff, like old books. He has a version of a manuscript, which is kind of how he lured her there in the first place.
Right.
With her brain. She's like, I gotta see the manuscript. He's like, oh my gosh.
I thought that was a little unrealistic. Like his library having so many historic, and like, I just don't think that they would have been that well preserved, right? In a castle that people were living in, and like that's 600-year-old paper. It doesn't. I don't know. I was surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. I do like
very much reminds me of the Beast.
Oh yeah,
you said Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, and it reminded me of Beauty and the Beast. Like, come to my library.
Okay.
If you've ever seen the meme, give her a library because bitches love libraries.
Oh Lord.
I mean, it would work for me.
Yeah.
That was the only redeeming quality Matthew had for me. Like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna see your library. Let's do it.
So, Casey, to you, by the end of this book, you think Matthew is the same person he was at the beginning of this book?
Yes, but I can see how he's starting to grow. Like, he's still very much in that same protector, can't tell her anything, have to protect Diana from everything. I'm the big alpha hero. I'm the vampire who's 1,500 years old and I know everything. And yeah, she's a powerful witch, but I still have to protect her. Like, I still felt that very strongly at the end of the book, but I can see how hopefully he's going to change. You said he changes. So I'm holding on to that hope that he gets better in the future books. And maybe I can see, if I ever go back to reread, I'll see a bigger difference, but I didn't feel.
You can see the beginning of change, but not much progression yet.
Yeah.
Right. But when you start to think, like you said, what is it, 40 days or something? You expect someone that's 1,500 years old to change their point of view on something in 40 days when what they're doing is instinctual on top of probably personality. So his personality needs to override the instinct to stop that. And I don't think anyone could do that in 40 days. So it's like, when you think about the length of time, it's kind of like, well, maybe it's not that horrible.
One of the things I did like about the book is how eerie she made the vampires. And that was a lot at the beginning. And I think maybe that was the intention with having it so drawn out, is the way she talked about how time flows for Matthew and for other vampires, and how he can just sit motionless for hours because it's like no time at all to him. And when he went hunting with Hamish, he just, he spent the whole day kind of just sussing out where all of the creatures were and what their habits were, and all he did was just kind of stand still for 12 hours, right? So I think that I felt like she did a good job in the first third to half of the book, sort of setting us up for feeling like vampires are not just humans that drink blood, right? They are different. They are a scary, creepy, eerie kind of creature that are dangerous, and they have things they can control and things they can't control. And I wanted more of that. I finally got that about the witches back in Madison when she started, like the first time she sort of levitated off the ground. That was a really cool scene, and that made me start feeling like, oh, this witch thing is a thing. It's not just like I know a little bit about herbs and sometimes I see glimpses of the future. It's like, oh, okay, there's some actual power going on here. We saw a little bit with Satu, but not internalized with Diana. So I feel like I liked that about the book. I liked that, like, there was a real feeling of alienness about the creatures, and it wasn't just kind of a overlay for the sake of making a love story more interesting,
I agree. I have a fun game. You guys want to play a game?
Sure.
Okay. Let's play a game.
If you had a vampire for dinner, what would you feed him?
Have him over for dinner?
Yes. What would you feed him or her? What would you serve? Because we learned a little bit about what they like to eat. So what would you serve a vampire for dinner? I'll start so you guys can think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would serve medium to rare. Well, medium for me, rare for them. Steak with lightly sauteed veggies. And I would add like a herb butter because I think that they would eat that. And I would serve local Michigan wines. While they might not find them as delicious as 100-year-old wines, I think they would be okay with the Michigan wines that I selected because they would be not sweet. I wouldn't pick sweet ones. And of course, we can always have angel food cake with lots of berries for dessert. I'll eat the angel food cake. They can eat the berries. Okay, that's what I would serve.
Can I come over for dinner?
Yes.
Do you mean specifically vampires from this mythology?
Yes, from this mythology.
Okay, because one of the things that I find fun about reading fantasy is the way that different authors bend the tropes around, and they pick the parts they want to keep, and they create new parts, and they discard things that they don't like. So, the author pretty much laid out what they like and don't like. So I guess it's all about the wine and the broth, right?
And the rare steaks.
Or, you could serve, beef tartare. You could serve. There's a lot of options, if you're a chef or home chef.
They didn't actually eat the meat, though. They just drained the blood out of the creatures.
He ate the meat. She had some thinly sliced, what was it called? I forgot the type of meat it was, but he ate it. It was bison or something. It was something different that she had thin sliced.
I guess I'm thinking when they went hunting, when Isabeau and he hunted, they didn't eat the meat of the animals. They just drank the blood.
Right. But I think he called himself an omnivore because, when he's around people, he can basically eat anything. But when they do eat, they do have preferences. Like even later, there was a certain kind of nut or something. I can't remember. Was it a pecan? I don't remember. But Sarah or M says, don't eat all those. Those are Marcus's favorite, So it's like they do have preferences as far as when it comes to consuming actual food, although they don't need it. So am I the only one who could come up with a menu? That's it.
I'd probably do something similar, like rare meat, Probably steak because I love steak. But I'm not a chef by any stretch of the means. I'd have to go searching on Pinterest for recipes and.
Well, I'll tell you guys a funny story. So, because it starts with the two of you. When you came to visit me last year, we went wine tasting, and there's a local vineyard that I signed up for their subscription service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I was signing up, we'd had a few drinks at the time that I signed up, right? So there was a form you had to fill out, and I had the option of having it shipped to me or going to pick it up. Well, it's pretty close to me, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to pay for shipping, so I'll check off the pickup thing. Well, time passes, and they say, okay, your wine is ready, and I'll get to it next week. And I at one time thought, well, maybe if I don't pick it up, they'll just ship it, Anyway, long story short, a lot of time went by where I didn't pick up the wine.
Uh-oh.
And so finally I saw an email on a day that I was out and about. So I went up, and they have curbside pickup because of COVID. And I didn't get out to there. I thought I would spend time out there this past spring and summer in the tasting room with friends, because that was part of the deal. And of course I didn't do that because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I went out a couple of weeks ago to pick it up, and I called them first, because then they take it out to their pickup spot, and they kind of went, oh, you have a lot.
Oh, snap.
I was like, okay. So you guys, I went and picked up 20 bottles of red wine.
Oh, wow.
And then I had to find a place to put it in my house.
Oh, they're like, oh, this is your orders.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, because it's 4 bottles of wine 4 times a year, and I hadn't gone for a year.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So if Matthew came to visit me, I would just be like, here, drink some wine. Drink all the wine.
Here's 20 bottles.
Yeah, it's local. It's pretty decent. It's 2 whole years old. So.
That's awesome. So you have the gambit of wine to pick
So I have a lot of red wine in my house right now.
Yikes. If that happens again, tell them to ship some to me. I'll take it.
Well, I am prepared for a visit from Matthew.
Okay. Yeah. Good deal. All right. Well, anyway, I just thought that would be a little fun thing to talk about, because I did think it was interesting that she paid so much attention to their eating needs.
It was I liked that scene where she's put so much thought into what she was going to serve him. There's a very, there's a lot of books where preparing food for somebody and serving them food, it has a lot of meaning in their sort of courtship rituals. So I thought that was kind of nice.
I mean, even Matthew was kind of taken aback by how much work she did, and he was like, "It's been a long time since someone cooked for me." That was cute. That was their date. She thought it was a date. It's date night.
Yeah.
She don't cook for her man that she don't know is her man. That's what she don't do. But anywho. Oh, I thought this was really interesting at the end of the book. Did you guys notice that, the whole book is pretty much from Diana's point of view until the end, the very last chapter, because she's gone. She's in 1590. That last chapter where Sarah and Em come back to the house and they're like, oh, they're gone. I really like that ending chapter, because it was I don't know why. I just really thought it was really cute how they came and they found the note, and it showed Sarah had feelings. Yes.
Yes.
I just thought that was adorable. I'm like, oh, there they go off into their luxury camping RV to go camp, and they have a happy, they're together.
They drive off into the sunset.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that was cute. I liked it.
It was a cute ending. But it kind of detracted a little bit from them abruptly going back in the time. If it ended with them going back in time and like the book just cut off right then, that would have felt more like a cliffhanger setup for book 2. But the fact that, there's this extra chapter where everybody has to sit around and talk about it, it was cute. It was cute. I will give you that. But it felt like too much icing on top of the cake.
Again, it felt like cozy to me. Like they're going for like a little, not for the cliffhanger, not for the thriller, but for the cozy feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
I would rather that than I don't know if it ended on the last page where they took the step together. I think I would have been okay with that too.
Yeah. It just ended with them stepping off. I would have been much more like, okay, now I want to read book 2 because
what happened
and what happened. Like,
I don't know, Casey. I don't know, Casey. You get into book 2 and you realize again it's written by a historian, and you're in 1590, and you have all these descriptions. I don't know.
Okay, so maybe I won't enjoy it, but I would have like had that initial like, okay, let's pick it up. I'm excited in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do feel like how the book ended, like I was saying with that fast pace at the end, or faster paced at the end, I feel like hopefully the author has gotten her footing, with this story. So I honestly don't remember how the second book started. So hopefully, we're going into that 1590 ready to like rock the thing. And like, that is where Diana is supposed to learn her magic, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously she's going to be somebody's apprentice. That's all going on. So hopefully we jump right in. There's no need to like share the whole town, go through all their food and their heating. And you know what I'm saying? I hope they just kind of just jump right on in. But I know we'll get some history. We have to. It's just like a must. But
her running routine.
Yeah. Which I don't think she'll be doing in 1590. People will be looking at her like, what are you doing? You cannot be, what? In what outfit are you running? Okay.
No shoes. You wouldn't have the right shoes.
You don't have gym shoes. I'm like, she couldn't even take underwear. I'm like, God damn it. Can I at least take my Hanes her way underwear? Are you sure I can't take it?
They just show up wearing like underwear, basically, like the linen, loose linen shirts.
Yeah, like a night smock or something, basically. Like, that's uncomfortable.
Well,
I'd not like to go back to 1590.
Yeah, hopefully they show up at his friend's inn, right? And they'll be like, "Oh, you're from the future. Okay, well, meet past Matthew. He's downstairs."
That would definitely, and I think that's going to be interesting because we'll run into that whole, people have different philosophies on time travel. Can you talk to your previous self? Should you talk to your previous self? What happens when you run into your previous self? Like, that's a whole nother genre.
Well, they touched on that a little bit when they were practicing, right? And they went back to the night that they showed up at Seven Towers and danced, right? So basically they kind of reenacted what they did before, but with the knowledge that, that they brought back to the time.
Yeah, they didn't clue in Isabeau and Mark, but I don't know. But this is different, though. They're going so far back. Diana is not, she's never been there. There's no...
Right, but he has.
He has, yes.
So, I mean, you've read it before, so you know what's going to happen, so...
Which I'm very good at keeping my mouth shut. So.
Yes, you are. So I am curious about how that will go, about Matthew and his former self. And there was a little hint about that, about how he was going to be different back in 1590 than he is in 2011. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, right? So I'm interested for book 2. I want to see her learn magic because I liked the magic stuff that was in book 1. I liked the sort of creepiness of the witches that started coming out near the end. And I think, it should be fun to go back to Shakespearean times and see a little bit about what really happened. So,
and don't forget, she owes a big debt she owes a really huge debt to some goddess that
Yes.
she just promised anything to.
You never do that. Never do that.
Yeah, and Em was the only person who saw the goddess on that, that day. And she's like, oh my God, what did you do, Diana?
The tree, the poor tree. The tree died.
Yeah. She
That
needed
was
the
sad.
life from somewhere, and she didn't have enough inside of her. So, yeah, you got to pay that back. And see, that's another thing. I'm like, Matthew, you don't understand. You owe me a lot right now. A whole lot. So, anyway, are you guys ready to rate it? Or do you have a couple more topics you want to cover?
I think we can wrap it up.
I mean,
Okay.
I could. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Okay. Nicola,
there's always more we could talk about. But
Nicola, would you like to kick off the ratings?
Yeah, I struggled a little bit with the pacing and the length. It was just very long, which pushes it more towards the 3. I think, I'm willing to go along and hope for the rest of things to get more interesting, more exciting. So that makes it, makes me lean towards maybe a 4. So I would say, I got to come down somewhere like a 3.5. If you're going to be strict with me, I'll have to say a 3.
Okay. Because honestly, with your side commentary, I could not tell if you actually liked the book.
I'm very on. I feel like it's going to depend on how the next book goes, right?
Uh-huh.
So if it goes well, I'll be like, okay, that was a decent setup for this. But if it's another like really draggy one, I'm like, oh, okay, I should like that's enough of that.
Yeah. Okay. Casey, would you like to go next?
So, if I had been reading this book for fun, I absolutely would have put it down and walked away like 100 pages in. Like, I was done with it. But because I was doing it for the podcast and you said it gets better, I pushed through and I read the entire thing. And I still struggled with a lot of it. It was very repetitive. There was so much detail that was unnecessary. As an editor, I would have cut this book in half. Easily in half, if not less than that.
It's almost 3 books.
Yeah, like there was way too much and a lot of pacing issues and tension issues, and so I'm gonna go with a 2-star, which is better than the 1-star and giving up at 100 pages that I was ready to do earlier this week.
Okay.
Like it
that
picked up a little bit, but like Nicola said, it really depends on book 2.
Okay. Well, I'm crossing my fingers for you guys because, I mean, honestly, I thought you both would like it. It surprises me that you didn't, especially Casey, because we usually are in tune. Yeah.
I think maybe if I'd started it sooner and I wasn't feeling like a time pressure to finish it, I might have liked it a little bit better. But I only gave myself a week because I had some other book club timing things. So I think part of it was that I was feeling the pressure to speed through it, and it feels like a book that maybe needs to be taken little bits at a time, maybe. I don't know. So,
okay. Well, definitely I do concur with you guys as far as the pacing on the onslaught of the book. Like the first 200-ish pages were kind of slow and repetitive a little bit. But beyond that, I feel like once we got to that turning point, that was a turning point for me when things started getting more interesting. Once we got out of London and away from the school, things started to take a turn for me.
Definitely.
And like I said, I am not a Matthew fan in book 1. I don't love his character in book 1, but I'm holding out hope because he's going to be a better person. I know it. As far as the writing, I did enjoy it. I did like, even though it was slow, I did like the feeling of fall, the feeling of the library, the sipping of the wine. I guess because I love wine. I guess I did like the yoga because I do yoga. I guess I did like, some of
the witchcraft because you. Oh wait, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, you can call me a witch. I'll come up with some witchcraft. I'll come up. Okay. But I mean, there were a lot of things that I did like, and I just, I enjoy, for me, it held up. And by that, I mean, the first time I did give it a hard time, but in the end, I liked it. And in the end, this time I liked it. I don't regret it. So I will give it 4 out of 5. There you go. And the audiobook, Jennifer Akita, she is very good because if you guys follow me on Instagram, then I have the book I was reading and listening. Because, when I'm doing other things, I will put on the audiobook, which helped, I think, with me cutting down that time. Because while I'm doing other things, I was listening. And then when I had time to sit down, I was reading. So I think that also pushed me through it a little faster. But that's just my 2 cents. So, yeah.
Hey, I have a question, Tamara. Are we reading 3 books or are we reading 4 books?
3. The 4th book is not, I read the 4th book too. The 4th book is not a part, I mean, it's this world, it's these characters, but it's after.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? So it does, you don't need to read it.
I was just curious because I thought it was 3, but I was seeing things on Amazon about a 4-book series, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's called Times Convert, but it's definitely not a part of this story arc. So, yeah. If that makes sense. So what I thought is we could play the trailer for the TV show, because if you haven't seen it or heard it, for those of you watching on Patreon, you can see it. For those of you on the podcast, hopefully you can hear it. If not, this will be cut out for you. Or I'll try to insert it another way. And we're going to watch this trailer, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do after watching this trailer. So let me get the world set up, get my life set up, because this is interesting. All right.
Once the world was full of wonders, but it belongs to humans now. We have all but disappeared. Demons, vampires, and witches, hiding in plain sight.
Professor Claremont, you're a vampire.
You're a witch. To determine what's happening to us, we have to understand our beginnings. The book.
I've been looking for it for over a century. If we witches have the book of spells, it could change everything.
You need to be careful.
Is that a threat?
No. It's a warning.
It's not about the book, is it? It's about her.
The Covenant forbids interspecies relationships.
Are you seriously considering endangering our family? For which? If you do, it'll be war.
I don't get to choose who I love.
If we were allowed to come together, there'd be fewer problems. Can't you see the danger you're in? She is astonishingly powerful.
I'm not in control of it.
If he breaks the rules, he pays the price.
Give her to them.
We are bound together.
All right. So I must say that looks good to me.
It does.
I'm feeling it. I love Matthew Good. What do you guys think about the actors they chose? You think those were good picks at first glance?
First glance, yes. They're pretty similar to what I pictured for the characters. And I think they won't have the pacing problem that the books have. So that's a huge plus in my column. Like, yes, let's speed through all of this and not, repeat all of the running and rowing. And even though they were showing it, it looked like it'd be a quick snippet and
a montage.
Yeah, let's just montage it really fast in 30 seconds instead of 100 pages.
Well, I am curious though, like and this is a thing with adaptations, when they try to make it for a movie or a TV show, they do bring things down so that people who haven't read it aren't bored by it, right? So with that, sometimes they can be heavy-handed with the exposition. You know what I'm saying? Like, here you go. Here, let me, tell you or narrate to you everything that's happened. So I'm curious to see how they deal with that. And I also, at first glance, it seems like they've changed some of the characters to be people of color, which I love. I'm down for it. I think it looks good. And I can already tell some differences, like with how Diana handled that book. Very different already from the book. But I'm down for it. I'm cool with the changes. I mean, I want to see how it's going to be and if we're going to like it. And I really hope Casey likes it.
From that preview, I like it better than the book already. So
I was just looking on the IMDb to see who is cast as who.
So Matthew Good, you guys probably, if you ever watched, what was he in? I don't know. He's been in a bunch of crap, but I really like him. Every time I see him in something, I'm like, okay, I'm down for it. I think he's going to make Matthew more appealing to a lot of people. And what's the woman's name? I like her too.
Teresa Palmer.
Something. Yeah, Teresa Palmer. I like her as well. She definitely looks like Diana to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very kind of waspy. I'm trying to see who the black character was, and I can't tell from these tiny thumbnails.
Let's see. I'm going to open up the IMDb page, too, and take a look. So Juliet was the black woman. What's the black guy? I bet it's What's-Her-Face's husband. I bet it's Nathaniel. I bet you it is. Let me see. Where's the guy at?
Yeah, I don't see him in the...
Well, he didn't come in until the end, so he's probably at the bottom of the list. Unless they introduce him much earlier. I don't know. There it is. Daniel. I just searched Nathaniel Wilson. Yep, that's the black guy.
Okay.
And so that means his wife was the white woman that was with him.
Deborah Harkness shows up. The author makes a cameo.
Oh.
She does?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
She's sitting in a lecture in one episode.
Oh, yeah, it says uncredited. So she'll show up. Oh, in episode 1. So we'll see her immediately.
Yeah. We'll have to look for her.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we played that trailer, and obviously I think you have an idea that we're going to watch this thing, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to watch the whole first season, which came out in January 2019. So we're going to watch the whole thing, and we're going to do a bonus episode about the adaptation and how it ties in with the actual book, the differences, what we liked, what we didn't like, all that fun stuff. So if you've watched that show, you've read this book, you'll want to tune in for that. So it's coming. Be sure to be subscribed so you don't miss it. Follow on social so you don't miss it. I'm very excited.
Yes.
I'm super excited because I really wanted to watch it now. But I didn't want to muddy the waters. You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure I didn't confuse anything with what I saw. So I'm glad that I did not proceed and start watching it. Because sometimes that happens. You're like, wait, was that on the TV show or was that in the book? So that happens sometimes, at least to me. So the next book in series is Shadow of Night. And we'll be reading that next and talking about that next month. So be sure to stick around for that. And definitely, hit us up in the Facebook group, Shelf Addiction Official. Let us know what you thought of A Discovery of Witches. And, let us know all the things.
Yeah.
All the things. Anything else, ladies, before we wrap things up?
I think that's pretty good.
I think we've covered everything.
All right. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode. And until then, take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction Official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction Podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.